And I parked in this space over here by Whitehurst. You know how they have all those reserve spaces and, of course, handicap spaces and pay spaces and all that? Well, I've got a faculty sticker, so that's kind of, the B crowd over at Whitehurst. But I'm driving around trying to find space, and I see this space, and there's a handicap space to the right, and this is like right in front of Whitehurst. Most important place, right? Handicap spot, and then there's a space, and then there's another space, and it said, 24-hour tollway zone, FA code 62 or something. And so there was a car there, and then there was a car in the handicap space. There was nothing in there, and there was no sign. So I parked there, and I thought, man, I better not come back out here in 3 hours and tow it. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Then there was the car next to me was like a $80,000 Lexus or something with State Regent stickers on it. So I hope I didn't park in a State Regent parking spot. That's what I'm trying to say. So because my ride will probably be gone by the time I get out of here. All right. Well, parking, isn't that fun? Everybody loves parking. Y'all have trouble parking?
Yes.
You do?
Oh,
it is? Really? Every campus I've ever worked at always had a parking issue. But the worst one, I went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. It's an urban campus. And luckily, I lived in an apartment up on top of the hill or mountain, right in front of the river. And so I would just walk to campus, and it took me about 30 minutes if I was confident. The hard part's getting over the bridge. But once I got to campus, you're no big deal. But there were people who commuted, from, how many of y'all commute? Several? Where do you commute from?
Johnny.
Wow, that's great. Coming up 177 too. Well, they've improved it, so that's good. But a lot of people would commute, and it was a first come, first served parking thing, just like here. And I would be often going in really early, like I'd go in at 6:30 in the morning. And I'd be walking up to my building to the grad student offices and stuff, and I'd walk past all these parked cars. People would get there at like 5:30 in the morning and kick back and sleep, like for 2 or 3 hours before their class, just to have that parking space because they're coming in from who knows where. So that's a serious parking issue. And that was back in the 90s. Actually, the 80s. It was back in the 80s, a long time ago. Sorry, I'm just jabbering here, wasting your time. Helps to plug it in. Well, you've got this project coming up that's due a week from Friday, 10 days or so. Has anybody uploaded any information to the collaboration site, the shared site? Nobody's done anything like that. Has anybody found any data, like harvest data? I think I was going to put that up there, but I never did. So if anybody wants to, have you pulled that down as an Excel file, the harvest data from this year? Anybody? Who's used it? Who's used it? You said you.
Yeah, I've done on Hunter Stillbox, but I haven't.
Okay, that's the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation website, and they also have an app. Okay, they have an app that's pretty cool. Although the website, you can probably get more stuff from the website. But Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, OD, or just say wildlifedepartment.com or something like that. And that will take you to all kinds of good stuff. I think they have some historical harvest data, but I know they have, since they had this online app, they've got, the current 2019-2020 whitetail deer season harvest data for the state by county. In fact, it may even have GPS coordinates. I'm not sure because it seems like when you do it, how many of you did a online tag this year? Okay, so when you do that, does it record a GPS point? But it's a county, but doesn't it also ask you something a little more specific?
Private land or public?
Anything else?
If you're on a WMA or in which WMA.
Okay, all right. So they're not really that concerned about actual location. It's going to be all aggregated by county. Okay. So what county was the county to, I mean, what county have you identified from that data? Well, how would we do that? Say, I'm not even going to do it. Y'all can download the data, okay? You'll probably have to download it as probably comes in as, if not an Excel file, then as a tab or a comma delimited file, for a spreadsheet. And you can pull that up into an Excel file and save it as an Excel file so you can play around with it a little bit easier. But anyway, once you get that data, I'm going to say, okay, now, if you're wanting to figure out what county has the greatest rate, or I don't know, what would you call it? If you have harvest data and that harvest data is aggregated by county, right? And by harvest, I mean the number of deer killed, okay, intentionally. Although, I guess you could probably check a deer that you found on the road dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're supposed to do that, actually. So anyway, the harvest data you can download, if that is aggregated by a county, so you have 77 counties in the state of Oklahoma, and you have a number, or you may even have several numbers for each county. Like you may have the number of, it may have the number of does, the number of antlered deer.
Yeah, I'm on it right now. You can look at the antlered harvest and you can look at the
Antlered harvest? And how about the gun season versus archery season versus primitive
Yeah,
season?
you can do select all or.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I've played around with that. Not recently, but I played around with that. So when you get on there, okay, say, for example, we get a number. Are you looking at one for me?
Yeah, this is.
Why don't we look at Pawnee County?
I'm looking at Payne right now.
Payne, okay. So what do we have for Payne County?
It gives you the person who harvested it,
Yeah.
and it gives you, how many they harvested, and then,
Right.
antler points.
And my son got like one of the top ones in Payne County this year. We're recording, by the way. And I promise you, the recordings, I have to upload those, play with them, and then mount them. But I'm going to do that after my second class here today, so y'all can see some of that stuff. So, not that you really want to watch it. So you have the number, and it also gives you the name, but we're not interested in necessarily names, right? So say what's the harvest? What's the total harvest, antlered and non-antlered deer for the whole season? Well, let's say that.
What county?
Let's say the whole season for Payne County.
It says 1980,
1,980 deer.
yeah, for the 1920 season.
Okay, and that's everything, archery and gun season and primitive? Total, okay. And no division between antlered and does, okay. So 1980, is that what you said? Okay. Now, if you compare that with, go look at McCurtain County. What?
778.
778, okay.
778.
What?
3,778.
3,778, okay. Now, which county is the county that's going to have the best deer hunting? Why? Are you sure?
It's going to depend on the size of the county and population.
If we forget about the fact that those data need to be normalized to the area of the county, I don't doubt the fact that McCurtain County is much better than Payne County, all right? But it may not be that much better. And you might find that like Creek County is better than McCurtain County, all right? Or you might find that a smaller county like, I don't know, Ottawa County or Love County is much better than, Osage County. I don't know. When you normalize the data. So this is what you got to do. Everybody write this down. You want to get those data. So you have like Payne 1980, McCurtain 3778. And what would you need to do to normalize that data spatially? In other words, to get a harvest per square mile. Excuse me. Think about that. Room 310.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, really? So that's it. Oh, yeah, I see that, yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Bye. Master control again.
Total number of deer harvested divided by the amount of acres in that county.
Yeah, or what data would be probably, what sort of land area data would you get for the county? You could get maybe acreage. Okay, if you got acreage, would that be better than square miles?
Sections.
Square mile sections? I mean, because if you go, okay, which one of those is a higher resolution? We're in geography today, okay? This is all geography stuff. So you have, I agree, I think you got to go acreage, right? However, you could fine tune your data. So you can start off with like, okay, how many square miles are there in McCurtain County versus Payne County? Well, you can go to Wikipedia and see that real quick, right? Or you can just look that up probably somewhere. Yeah, Master Control's deleting a bunch of stuff off the machine so it'll work. Isn't that neat? They can delete data.
I would have
So
told
it's
the
called
class
master
I was
control,
going to get
right?
with my head.
Yeah. So anyway, you could use square miles or you could use acreage data, okay? And then if you used, okay, so then you would like compare. Well, let's just do that real quick. What's the area, the land area of McCurtain County and the land area? Do I have something in my nose?
No.
Okay. It feels like it. I got the beard trimmed today, didn't I? I feel like somebody's sticking a paintbrush up my nose. Anyway, if you divide the land area of McCurtain County, right, or do the ratio, how many deer per square mile do you get in McCurtain County? How many deer per square mile do you get in Payne County? Well, what's the land area in square miles of Payne County? Everybody do this for me, please. Don't just be passive listeners.
Payne County is 684.70 square miles.
684, what?
70.
Okay, 685 square miles, okay? 685, and then McCurtain County?
1,850.
1,850. Okay, so you all do the math. From those two figures, which county has the highest, would we say, production per land area? Is that one way we could say it? Geography major? Geography major? Who's my geography major? Oh, I see you. Okay. What would we call that? If we were to compare the number of deer taken in a county and divide that by the square miles of the county, or is it the other way around?
WT, or the Wildlife Department.
We would get a number of deer per square mile taken, right? Something like that. Number of deer harvested this past year from, okay, so then what do we got? I wish I had a chalkboard to do this. You with me? Okay, so 1980 for harvest in Payne County, and then the land area was 685? Okay, so how many deer per square mile on average?
Deer.
What?
I can do the math, but I don't know what the deer
1980, 1,980 deer
for.
for Payne County,
How many square miles was it again?
685 square miles. in McCurtain County? Can you all do McCurtain County for me?
It's about 2.9.
2.9 deer per square mile harvested. Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it? It is a lot. It's probably like 30 or 40% of the population.
Payne County is 2.9.
2.9 Payne County, is that what y'all
Yeah,
got?
that's what I was saying.
They just said that. How about McCurtain County?
2.04.
There's 33,000 people.
Well, what do you know? Payne County beats McCurtain County, right? Okay.
Maybe.
Now, let's think about that. Does that really mean that there are more deer, alive or otherwise, in Payne County than McCurtain County? No. What's it mean? I mean, there's a lot better hunting in McCurtain County because there's not nearly as many hunters, probably.
How many WMA lands are there?
There may be more, there may be more public land.
County's 3 times the size of Payne County.
It's huge, yeah. McCurtain County is gargantuan, and has a very low population density.
Yeah.
The population density of McCurtain County is mostly concentrated down in the very southern part of the county along the Red River. So that's going to have something to do with it, right? Now, if you look at the land cover in McCurtain County versus the land cover in Payne County, both are pretty good, pretty good habitat for whitetail deer. I would maybe argue that Payne County is no better or no worse than McCurtain County because McCurtain County's got, covered with oak pine forests mostly, but some, there's quite a bit of mix, but a lot more rugged territory in McCurtain County, more isolation, far fewer people, but we've got that harvest day. So that means, so I hope you're thinking, never really be satisfied with what you've got, okay? Try to figure out how would I improve this? So how would you improve? Well, let's do it with acreage now, okay? Let's just change our scale, our geographical scale, and that would be, how many acres are there in a square mile? 640 acres in a square mile. So if you just transform that, how many acres are there in McCurtain County? How many acres are there in Payne County?
Payne County is 438,400.
Okay, so write that down. 400. You're our recorder today. Okay. Because you look like somebody in a faculty meeting. Okay. All right. So the area of acreage Payne County is, you say?
438,400.
438,000, 43A. 400, comma, 400. And that's acres, okay? How about McCurtain County? Acreage of McCurtain County. Multiply 640 times, whatever that was, not that. Is that it? 850 square miles? Okay.
1,000.
What's the square mileage of McCurtain County, somebody?
1,850.
Okay, 1850. So 1850 times 640. 1.2 million acres, right? Okay. Now, think about this. How many of you have been to McCurtain County? How many of you ever been to Payne County? Just checking, okay, just checking. We're in Payne County. So McCurtain County versus Payne County. What are some differences other than, say, the type of land cover, which, oak pine forest down in McCurtain County versus a mix of cross timbers and urban and pasture in Payne County? What are some other variations in the terrain or in the land area? You mentioned one, which is a political one. Lots of WMAs, lots of wildlife management areas down in McCurtain County. There's also national forest. You got the Ouachita National Forest taking up a huge area. You can hunt on national forest land, but probably a lot of people don't. It's probably one area that a lot of people don't hunt so much on because it's public land. So that's maybe a factor, okay? So in your spreadsheet, you definitely would be able to pull down data like, how much public land is there in this county? How much public land is there in Payne County? It's actually quite a lot, but you can't hunt on it because it's university. Okay, so it's state land, but It's not like a wildlife management area or federal land like a national forest. So you can think about these things. I'm not saying you have to, but you might want to try to consider what are some other differences in, say, any factor that would affect, say, the population of the deer. What was it? Population density, right? What's the population of McCurtain County, the human population?
33,000. 33,000.
33,000 McCurtain?
Yeah.
You write that down for me? 33,000 humans in Payne County?
78.
78,000. Now let's do the math and look at a population density of each county. What would that be? Human population density.
81,000 from 2017 of Payne County.
From 2017 data, the human population of
Payne County.
Payne County per square mile.
Oh, per square mile?
Or per acres, I don't care. Probably stick with square miles instead of acres because then we're going to get below 1, below 0 or below 1, yeah.
113 as of 28.
113 people per square mile
Yeah.
in Payne County? Okay. And that's, of course, that's an average. Here on campus, you have very high population density. But if you go out near my in-laws' house in the boondocks, right? Not very many people.
So what was the square mileage?
What?
What was the square mileage of Payne County again?
685?
Okay, I'm getting
Yeah, that's for
119.
land. 697 if you include water.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. We've got land area. The deer don't live in the lakes, right? So we could subtract any.
Swim across them.
What?
Swim across them.
Well, yeah, okay. But, it's not habitat. So if you're talking about Payne County, you could subtract, right? Subtract the area of Lake Earl Blackwell, Lake McMurtry. Is it Lone Chimney? Or is that in Pawnee County?
That's in
That's Pawnee County. Those are the two, Boomer Lake, all right? Theta Pond. But you can subtract the land area, and you could also probably subtract most of the land area of the developed part of the county, which in Payne County is a significant chunk. I mean, a lot of Payne County is paved, so not necessarily deer habitat, although deer do really well in town, by the way, as you all probably know. There were 5 does in my front yard the other day, so standing there on the road, waiting to get hit. So you've got that population. So if you subtract that land area, then you're going to really see a big difference between the deer harvest in Payne County versus the deer harvest down in McCurtain County. So what was the population density of McCurtain County, human population density per square mile? How many people per square mile? And
18 per square mile.
18 versus Payne County?
113.
Ooh, that's a big difference, isn't it?
Well, it's only
I want to
33,000.
move to McCurtain County, by the way, yeah. If I don't move to Cimarron County. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyway, so you see differences there? Population of humans, built up land area, types of habitat. We've got data on harvest, on deer harvest data that is kind of a gauge on what's going on, perhaps, right? All right, so we're talking about population. We're supposed to be talking about population a little bit today anyway, while we're on the subject. How many humans are there in the world today? So anyway, before I miss that, if y'all are playing around with that data, would you be so kind as if you you upload some data and you clean it up a little bit, make it into an Excel spreadsheet, would you be so kind to share it with the class, put it out on that collaboration space, upload the file or whatever? I'm not saying upload your project, I'm just saying share the data so other people can use it and see it. You might even tell everybody how to use it or how they might use it, okay? So, collaboration. It looks good on your resume. So how many people are there in the world? How many humans right now?
7.8 billion.
You saw that population clock, right? Population clock. Okay, now, if everybody, if we took, let's just move up a few years, 8 billion people. 8 billion people, human beings. How many do we have in here? Like 30-some? Maybe not that many today, but, okay, we've got 8 billion people. What if those 8 billion people were standing in, kind of like a crowd, kind of like before a football game, around like the walk, that sort of thing, how people will crowd around. They get in so close, depending on the culture, They don't get necessarily real close, but, a loose crowd of where you would have about 4 square feet of space, a 2 foot by 2 foot square, all right? 2 by 2. That's in the Bible too, 2 by 2. So we have a 4 square foot area, okay? How many square feet would the crowd be if you got all human beings in the same crowd? Not that that would ever be possible. Maybe on Black Friday, I don't know. Friday,
Square
Thanksgiving,
feet, 7.8 billion people.
Well, let's go 8 billion. Let's just make it easy. 8 billion, I don't know what that means, but 8, is that 3.2 with 9 zeros? Okay.
And you said a 1 foot square?
Yeah, no, I said a 4 foot square. So 4 square feet times 8 billion. Now, if you have a notebook or something to type on, try this.
32 billion square feet.
Okay. Is it 32 billion?
Yeah.
32 billion?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. 32 billion, right?
Yeah.
Or is it 3.2 billion?
No, sir.
32.
That's not how math.
It is, yeah, it's 32 billion, right? Okay. 32 billion square feet equals how many acres? Or make it easier, square miles? Well, we need to know what? How many square feet are in a square mile?
You want to know acres, 2
I'm
miles?
so sorry. I didn't mean to rush you.
Well, we know acres to square miles. It's 640 acres, right? Well, let's say square feet. How many square feet in a square mile? You can do this. How many feet? Okay, how many feet is a mile, folks?
280.
You know that. You reckon? Yeah, I mean, that's what we memorized in the 5th grade. What is it?
5,280.
5,280 times 5,280.
27 million.
Length times width equals area. Remember that? Okay. So how many square feet?
27 million.
Okay. Now you take that, right? And Gazinta with the other one, 32 billion, right? How many times does whatever that number was go into 32 billion? Before we do the math, before we do the math, let's have a little wager, okay? Anybody got cash on? Okay.
I'm
I don't have a dollar.
I'm a college student. Are you kidding me?
Well, college students drive better cars than faculty members, so.
I found
Just 'cause mommy
$20
and
while I
daddy
was
are very nice.
All right, so
Yeah, I like check.
before we go there, somebody tell me a geographical area that would be kind of, sort of close to the size of the 8 billion people crowd with a 4 by 4 square each. Everybody has 4 square feet. We got the numbers. How big of an area is that? Don't cheat. Don't just try to guess. Try to guess. How big of an area is that? Is that like the size of Ukraine?
It's like the size of,
Canada.
I want to say it's the size of like a small state in the Northeast.
A small state in the Northeast? Rhode Island?
Something like that. I don't know.
Gotta be bigger.
I feel like I've heard this.
You've heard this before?
I've heard someone say it before. Yeah, so I'm a cheater.
I may be talking about this in one of the online things that you've seen.
Oh, maybe that's where.
I think you're actually right on the money. I think that's about right. It may be, well, anyway. I bet you Osage County's bigger.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Now look at Rhode Island in the world, and if that's one crowd of human beings, all right? That always kind of boggled my mind. That's a pinhead on the world map. All the humans in one giant crowd, okay? Now, of course, those humans generate 3 or 4 bags of garbage every day, right? No, not all of them. Just the richest 5% or 10% or something like that. Increasingly, the richest 50%, okay? So impact on the land can be extraordinary compared to the numbers. Well, anyway, we were talking about population densities of deer and that sort of thing. Let's not waste the entire day. It's noon. Right, okay. There are some things that we can learn about with regard to, let's see, I'll just go to this, it's faster. How many of you have looked on the second lesson about population and that sort of thing? We're talking about Malthus and so forth, right?
60 million.
So what types of population density are there? There's arithmetic population density, which is a type that we initially did by looking at the deer population and the square mileage of the county, right? That's the arithmetic population. That's the dumb one that they put in the back of every atlas, all right, or they used to, or it's just it's the mileage or the square mileage versus the population, right? Now, what's the problem with that? I said it was the dumb one, right? It's the one that ignores reality. So if you got a square, if you got a population density of the United States, the entire United States, including Alaska, what is it? Arithmetic population density is simply the population of the United States divided by the land area. Okay? Now, that ignores the fact that within that one country you have lower Manhattan and Alaska, all right? And Wyoming. And so those, that aggregated data doesn't tell you much at all. So we have this other thing, and take another example, a more extreme example than even the United States. Egypt, okay? Egypt's big country, North Africa, almost all the population concentrated along the Nile Valley and the Nile Delta. You all know that. It's a pretty populous country. It's actually kind of crowded up and down the Nile Valley. They actually had a lot of agriculture and stuff too. But most of the whole country is desert with very few people in that outside of the Nile Valley. So in the case of Egypt in particular, an arithmetic population density is completely meaningless. Now, so if you take Egypt as an example, we have something called the, what we might call the physiologic or physiological population density. And with that, let's see here. Well, where are my? Sorry, folks. So you know what I'm getting at? What would be a physiological population density? What would that take into account? I should really memorize this.
The amount of people per arable square kilometer of land.
Arable. What's arable mean? The amount of people per arable square mile or square kilometer.
Livable?
Good growing land.
land that can produce crops, general. Now, if we say food, then that could include grazing land, but usually arable land does not count range land, specifically just grazing range land. It counts cropland, like wheat land or any sort of crop. So if you look at Egypt's population density in terms of arithmetic population density, and then look at the physiological population density, how much land can actually be used to produce food, okay, then what's the difference? Which would be the greater population density? Because you can't grow food everywhere necessarily, at least not very easily. Nobody's talking to me today. What's the deal?
Rainy,
It's the
gross
same,
day.
wouldn't it? It'd be the greatest around the river.
Yeah, but you would only count the land around the river. You wouldn't count the desert as part of the denominator. So,
I would still say that the people aren't gonna live very far away from where water's not gonna be.
yeah. So arable land, in the case of Egypt, arable land's pretty much any land that has access to water, right? So you could produce crops. But that acreage of arable land in Egypt is going to be very much different, very small compared to the total land area of the country of Egypt, right? See what I'm getting at?
It'd be a higher
So
density.
you have much higher density in Egypt. So the population densities of a country like Egypt and the arable population density is really, really high, okay? Or the physiological population density. In the case of the United States is fortunate to have lots and lots of agricultural land or land that could possibly be turned into agricultural land if we needed it. And therefore, if you look at the physiological versus even I think the arithmetic population density of the United States is around 78, 75 people per square mile, okay? Which is less than Payne County, but a little bit more than McCurtain County, apparently. So, or what was McCurtain County? Anyway. But if you look at the arable land in the United States and you look at the physiological population density, it's not nearly as extreme as the physiological population density and arable population density differences in Egypt. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see here. Modules, where do we go? It's population growth. This is what I'm trying to get at. Oh, yeah, here we go. So this is this little map. I don't know if you can see that. I've got a link to it somewhere here.
It's just one part shooting a video.
This is one way to look at it. I've got this list. I can't believe this. Please install an app.
Master control, huh?
Master control, yeah. Yeah, that's me.
Just call you Butters for short.
Call me what?
Butters.
Butters? What's that? Butterfinger? Butters?
It's a character television show called South Park.
Oh, my mom never let me watch that.
Professor Chaos is your name is Butters.
Let's see here. Where's population? Okay. I've got some maps here.
Ask me later. I've seen a couple of cigarettes and I don't know, but they don't air that.
Well, we were talking about population pyramids too, weren't we? All right, so anyway, you see, population density measures. Here's a map of population density. Goodness gracious. Okay. And you see what we're talking about? Like here's Egypt, right? But most of the people are concentrated along the Nile and the Delta.
Yeah.
So the arable land of Egypt is only going to be counting, that land pretty much where the people are. United States, the different, lots of dispersal of population over large areas, mostly high rate of urbanization, that sort of thing. India, the eastern 1/3 or 1/4 of China is very high population density, and that's because most of the land in China, most of the western 2/3 of the country, western 3/4 in some ways, is not really arable land. The Chinese would have habited, they would have populated it a long time ago. So much of the world's land, or much of the country's arable land is populated already. So, all right, so population density, arable versus physiologic, that's one thing we can look at. But we have to, and this is kind of like if you're in wildlife ecology or something, like the carrying capacity. You're familiar with the carrying capacity, right? You ever heard about that? What's a carrying capacity? It's a theory that it's how many animals in a species a chunk of land like a kilometer or a square mile can support, right? Okay, so if you go out in the woods today, around here, and look around, this time of year, there's not a lot of stuff budding out quite yet, right? But anything that's out there, you're going to notice that the deer, if you look closely, the deer have nipped off just about every form of browse you can imagine. Briars, blackberries, they're eating anything that's green at this point because, frankly, most of the acorns, it's spelled acorns, but I say acorns. Acorns are gone mostly. They're pretty much gone, except in my front yard. And so the deer are really relying on food sources, on sort of their food sources are thinned out now. Okay, now in about a month and a half, it's going to just explode, especially if you have all this nice rain, moisture. The land is going to just blossom out, and the deer are going to get fat and happy, okay? And they're going to start fawning, and everything's wonderful for the deer, okay? But right now is when we do a little bit of management, do a little bit of wildlife habitat management, and you can also start bribing the deer to get them into a pattern of movement, okay, with deer feeders. And you can also do things like create cover. My son was out. I'll show you some pictures maybe. My son was out. We were out this weekend making these. What do you call them? So you take a saw and you cut a tree about a third of the way through, and then you push it over, and it goes. Right. So you don't kill the tree. It's just laying sideways, and then it'll start growing up like this. But the whole point of that is to get those buds down low so that the buds on the trees. Okay, it's like red bud trees, they're good, hackberry trees and stuff. And the deer will come around and feed on those buds. They'll eat those buds this time of year. That's the thing. Another thing that I just noticed the other day, Sunday or whatever, is the honey locust trees. You seen those? How many of you know what a honey locust tree is? What do you know about a honey locust tree? Thorns, yeah. What else? This time of year, they start dropping their seed pods. It's kind of like mesquite if you're from Texas. except the big old seed pods, they'll drop those this time of year. And I just noticed they're starting to fall. And of course, the deer are like on them, like, that's like candy, okay? It's on, they're on, those are like Hershey's Kisses to them. They just chow down on them, full of sugar, okay? So they're looking for food, they're looking for whatever they can get this time of year. Population, so the point of that is, carrying capacity, right? Carrying capacity. Is that a valid concept? Maybe for deer. Is it a valid concept for human beings? It's a valid concept for hunters and gatherers. It may be a valid concept for subsistence farmers who can't get any trade goods. But how many of you have consumed something this morning that you didn't actually raise or produce or hunt or kill? Okay, all of us. Hopefully you ate something or drank something. Okay, where did that come from?
God knows.
Gosh, take chicken for an example, all right? Where do we produce a lot of chicken in the United States? Arkansas, right? North Carolina, Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma in some cases. And that chicken is produced on a industrial scale, right?
Sir.
It is a production line.
That's why I don't eat Tyson.
Where does the chicken go? Once the chicken is processed, which is a euphemism, but once the chicken is processed, okay, usually by Mexican workers, right? Why is that funny? It's a crappy job. It's hard work. And people that do it, I respect, okay? Huh?
They're automating it.
No, man, it's hard work. Meat packing in general is hard work. Anyway, so what I'm saying is the chicken gets slaughtered, processed, and what happens to it? Well, maybe they'll go whole, but most of the time, today, most of the chicken that y'all eat is very processed. Somebody's got to cut that chicken up, okay? You want a job cutting chicken up all day long with a knife in a cold area, freezing your hands off? Okay, so respect those people who do it then. So those are what they'll do is separate the choice cuts that go to the American market, which are the white meat cuts, that is the breast generally, and what else? Maybe the wings. And then there's the dark meat. None of you like dark meat. Who in the world likes dark meat?
Dude, it's way better.
Thighs and drumsticks and stuff like that. So those get separated. Guess who likes dark meat? The Chinese.
Yeah.
The Asian market loves the greasier, tastier dark meat from the chicken. And so one chicken raised in Arkansas and slaughtered in Arkansas by Mexican hands, okay, winds up half of it going to Chicken Express in New Jersey, and the white meat, and the leg and the thigh heading off to China, right? And isn't that amazing? In other words, the chicken that was produced in Arkansas is not just supporting somebody who's living right there in Arkansas. So the idea of carrying capacity with world trade kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Carrying capacity, it might make a lot of sense if you are in a place where you are dependent on subsistence agriculture. You don't have any Sam's Wholesale or anything near you, okay? You don't have any access to imported food, but that's changing a lot. There aren't that many people that don't have access to food produced elsewhere now, which is probably a really good thing for those folks, okay? So anyway, we had a lot of goofy examples here today. I think we've covered something. It's a little bit close to time to go. And let me leave you with one last thing. We've talked a little bit about Malthus. You've seen the idea about Malthus is there's a geometric rate of population versus an arithmetic increase in the amount of food. Well, this was all theory. Has this ever come to fruition? Has this ever occurred?
No.
Nah, well, yeah, that doesn't mean there aren't famines. But just about every famine you'll ever see has a political causation. Usually because the government is able to control movement of food or migration of people. When people get hungry, they start moving. And I'm hungry, so y'all start moving, okay? All right. See ya.